There's been a dangerous nuclear escalation by Vladimir Putin over European skies that's now come to light. Sweden has revealed that earlier this month, Russian bombers armed with nuclear warheads entered European Union airspace before being intercepted by Swedish fighter jets. Swedish media has reported that 4 of Putin's Sukhoi warplanes swooped in over the Baltic Sea towards the island of Gotland. 2 of the bombers were identified as Russian Su-24s, which were found to be carrying nuclear warheads even. They were escorted by 2 jets, possibly Sukhoi 27s. These Su-24 bombers, as seen in the images with a single stabilizer tail, were the ones that were armed with nukes. This is what Swedish media has claimed. European and Australian media has also confirmed this. 4 Russian jets were there. They were intercepted by 2 Swedish JAS 39 Gripen aircraft, which forced them to turn back. Russia's move is being seen as an intimidation tactic to arm to Sweden after it pledged military aid as well as anti-tank weapons for Ukraine. Let's take this across to Gaurav Sawant. He's joining us live from Kyiv. Extremely worrying development, this, Gaurav. We understand this actually happened earlier in the month, in the beginning of March. Fortunately, it didn't lead to any escalation of any kind. But it's clear this was an attempt to perhaps send out a message by Vladimir Putin to the world and to countries not to intervene, not to help Ukraine.
At the tactical level and strategic level, there are 2 signals from this Russian action. One, Sweden was to give Carl Gustafs to Ukraine. Very, very potent weapon systems, anti-tank weapon systems to take on armored columns. Now, all of this was a signal. Ukraine, apart from its Javelin anti-tank guided missiles, apart from its Stinger surface-to-air missiles, is also looking for other military hardware. While it's considered defensive, but it plays a very critical role in stalling the advance of Russian fighters and Russian columns that are moving forward. Any country that's promising these weapons is in the line of Russian fire, so to say. It's a message tactically to Sweden not to give weapons and systems to Ukraine. And strategically, it's a big message that's going out to other countries. Basically, Russia is trying to send out a message to the United States, to United Kingdom, to North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries not to get directly involved in Russia's war with Ukraine in terms of giving them military hardware and escalating it, not to declare a no-fly zone. Ukraine's President Zelensky in the past 1 month and counting has repeatedly asked for 3 things. 1, declaration of a no-fly zone. NATO hasn't done that. 2, fighter jets. Countries like Poland promised fighter jets but were scared to give it directly to Ukraine, sought to give it to Germany instead for transfer to Ukraine. America says that's untenable. That also hasn't happened. And 3 is tanks, offensive weapons. All of that, again, not happening. So there's a message that Russia is sending out to other countries in the region. Do not help Ukraine. Russia's aim is to ensure that the existing supply of weapons and systems and those defensive weapons and systems, that's checked, curtailed, future supplies curtailed, and then it will deal with Ukraine in the times ahead. Though on ground, there are, of course, some signals that Russia, before the talks that happened in Turkey starting the 1st of April, is showing some signs of relenting.
But, you know, this development extremely concerning for a number of reasons, as you just pointed out, Gaurav. It's not just about the messaging here. The fact that in the last 36 days of the war that you've been covering, we've seen so many very, very dangerous statements by Russia talking about using nuclear weapons, talking about an existential crisis, what kind of a situation would they be pushed into a corner to use nuclear weapons. Add to that is this kind of a dangerous escalation where it's not just words right now. We're talking about Russian bombers that were armed with nuclear warheads actually flying over European Union airspace. So it's no longer limited to just, you know, talking and nuclear saber rattling anymore. Here is Russia actually using nuclear warheads out in the skies to send out a message.
Russia's actions have been extremely significant, and Russia's actions have made the world very nervous. In fact, that is one reason why NATO countries haven't stepped up support to Ukraine despite repeated requests. From even before when this conflict started on the 24th of February, Russia's President Vladimir Putin supervised or inspected a strategic deterrence force exercise, and that was a very big signal. Now, those are the nuclear forces of Russia. They they brandish their ballistic missiles, nuclear-capable missiles. Then this military exercise that was carried out. Then these aircraft, the Su-24s armed with nuclear warheads, as Swedish media puts it, they were sent out. Now, that's a very clear signal, and that's a very dangerous signal that goes out. Remember, nuclear weapons have been used only once in the history of the world, and that too in Second World War in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the world is absolutely petrified of just the N word being used. And here you have the Russians who stand accused of brandishing these weapons to send out a clear signal. Now, this sends out a message to NATO not to get directly involved in this conflict, but the sanctions that are being imposed on Russia, the word that we are picking up is Russia says if it is indicating that if it relents, if there are confidence building measures being taken on ground, like not targeting Kyiv or Chernihiv, like they said in the last round of talks, will that mean at least some sanctions being removed? Is that the signal that Russia is looking at and looking for? Because President Zelensky of Ukraine has made it very clear, until there's total restoration of pre-February 24 situation, easier said than done, especially in the Donbass region.
Yes.
He doesn't want a single sanction lifted. He wants more sanctions and hard-hitting sanctions to be imposed on Russia. So this is where these negotiations and this dialogue, starting the 1st of April in Turkey, the next round of dialogue becomes extremely crucial and extremely critical.
Absolutely. Not just for Ukraine and Russia, but for the entire world right now, seeing how things are progressing. Gaurav, thank you for the moment for joining us with all of those details. Gaurav Sawant has been getting us constant updates from the ground, from Kyiv and across Ukraine on what the current situation is. Another focus for this morning for us here on India Today is that amid the Russia-Ukraine war, Russian President's top lieutenant and foreign minister Sergei Lavrov will be touching down in India shortly. Talks on oil and military hardware are likely to be on the agenda during the Russian foreign minister's visit, which will be just a day after the United States Deputy NSA, the Deputy National Security Advisor, Dalip Singh's visit to India. Lavrov's visit to India comes as the West continues to, in fact, try and get India over to their side on this war. India has steadfastly stuck to its neutral stand, maintaining equidistance from the West as well as Russia, and refused to get sucked into the war quagmire. India has abstained 6 times on votes for as well as against Russia. So it's very clear diplomatically where we really stand on this front. We're putting our interests first. Oil contracts between India and Russia have reached 6 million barrels for March and April alone. India has imported 3 million barrels from Russia at discounted rates so far. India has also defended its action by pointing out to Europe's continuing dependence on Russia for energy needs.